From our studios in Atlanta, welcome to CBT Live. Sponsored by Force Marketing, the nation's leader in automotive, direct, digital, and email marketing.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into yet another edition of CBT Live from the CBT Automotive Network studio in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm Russell Brown. Coming up during this live event, we're going to go inside the best practices that's going to take your dealership's marketing success to all new levels. Our panel of experts from Force Marketing will present strategies on how to capture the attention of car shoppers during the year's end, as well as provide new marketing insights and showcase some campaigns that's going to help kickstart your dealership into the new year. So 2014 saw a lot of changes, and honestly, over the past handful of years, we've seen a lot of changes when it comes to a digital marketing strategy for the average dealership out there. Let's look into the crystal ball here into 2015, which is coming up pretty quickly. What are going to be some of the changes that dealers need to be aware of in 2015? What are some of the trends going to be, and some of the buzzwords that we're going to be talking about here today?
Yeah, I'm going to share some of the unfair advantages that many dealers miss in their current digital marketing strategy, as well as a few consumer trends within that.
Nick, so add to a little bit of that and why programmatic advertising is becoming such an efficient way for dealers to spend their ads.
It is, and 2015 is such an exciting time to be part of automotive marketing. It's a chance for us to demand more accountability, more transparency, and drive more digital revenue for the current dollars they're spending. And I think there's this tremendous hidden value or underutilized funds within most dealers' paid search today, and that's through something called quality score. So quality score, in its simplest essence, is simply the searches that somebody does and then the content they reach on the website.
Sure.
So if that content isn't relevant, it costs much, much more to capture that. So we ran this study across both potential and current clients, about 100, and found $700 worth of underutilized budget that could be solved just by building more relevant content. So one of the things that we needed to look at in order to figure out where to define that best, which you can see on the next slide here, is consumer trend behavior. So here we're seeing based off when somebody's searches starts from the current year and then surpasses, or consumer interest surpasses for the next year. So this interest begins building in Q2 for that new year, and then perhaps unsurprisingly come Q4 when they can experience it, buy it, have it. Then officially they start looking more for that new year. But then something really interesting happens in cases of a major model relaunch. So for example, the Ford Fusion just had a complete redesign, and 2 times as many people searched for the current year, the one that didn't change. 3 times as many people searched for the upcoming one. So dealers should ask themselves, do I want to pay 2 to 3 times as much to capture that customer, or should I build some relevant content today to allow that to build?
Great point.
So to go back to quality score, Google calls it EATING, which stands for expertise, authoritativeness, and trust. So as with any good relationship, which is truly kind of what quality score is, it takes time. So what it means for dealers is in order to capitalize on this, in order to follow these consumer trends, they need to immediately be building content. Right now, Q4, Q1, because after that 3-month period, they'll have an unfair advantage and be paying dramatically less money for that same traffic, and at some point can adjust their search bidding behavior. But one of those search bidding behaviors on the next slide here is really interesting. So this is a common complaint that I get from dealers, both when I was on the dealer side as well as on the agency side, and they say, and it drives me crazy, why do I get so many service calls on my sales campaigns? You know, are you trying to cheat me? Is it the ad copy? What do I need to do to stop this behavior? So we dug into it, and it was fascinating because I was convinced that it was going to be a campaign structural piece. So I was thinking it's going to be somebody that typed in Ford F-150 service and then went to the home page, went to a sales page. So we looked at that, resolved that, looked at ad copy and said, okay, it's going to be very clear. If you're typing this in, you're going to a sales page. And there was only a minor correlation. So what we're guessing, or what the data suggests, is that consumers can just be lazy. As educated as they are, and oftentimes they're coming in smarter than some of our sales staff, they still struggle with this in order to figure out the simplest thing of here's what I was looking for and here's what I'm going to call. So understanding that we can't eliminate that behavior, how can we make it more profitable? And John mentioned something that was really key, is how can I improve my net revenue to each transaction? So what you can ask your provider to do is you can ask them to provide you a list of who called and who converted on which specific keywords. So for example, wouldn't it be valuable if you could take a Ford F-150, somebody that just typed that in and is spending a lot of money in service, and know that people that type in Ford F-150 spend more money in your store than someone that types in Ford Fusion, and then bid more aggressively. And that's something that doesn't cost any more money in marketing and allows you to do that. And the second piece is the quality score. Ask your paid search provider today to give you a list of all keywords under, let's say, a 7 quality score. And then look and see what makes and models are most common throughout that, and build content about that. But also consider if you have a major model redesign, it's going to change pretty dramatically. So you'll see that oftentimes keywords are informing each other. So service keywords can drive sales, sales drive service.
Sure.
And they really is, it's a very symbiotic relationship that we can absolutely look at and make more money on. So for the next slide here, one of the greatest challenges I had as head of digital for a group of 94 stores is no matter how big my team got, no matter how good we got, I felt like I was always working on that bottom 10% of opportunities or challenges, and it's because I had too many vendors. You know, there were 15 vendors for every single provider, 15 different reports for every vendor we had, and none of them matched. None of them played well together. None of them talked. It was so frustrating. It was so difficult just to get the data in one place.
Right.
And in this case, Google actually came to my rescue. So if you have a dealership website, by default, you're going to have Google Analytics. And it's about 5 minutes for a digital marketing provider to implement these things.
Just 5 minutes.
Just 5 minutes. Wow. Doesn't matter who your provider is, either website or digital marketing. And at a glance, you can see exactly what's happening. So you'll see here with Force paid search, you can see how many sessions. If it's set up, you can see how many conversions. You can see in one place, and you can bring everyone together and say, listen, we're going to agree that these are the goals we're going towards, and this is exactly what's happening. So on the final area here, it's really important for every lead to be sourced and tracked. We talked about quality score and taking the list of bringing your paid search terms in alignment with what's happening on your website, making sure those customers are being very relevant, and then taking that a little bit further and actually matching that to your DMS, your operational values, to increase your profit. But I think that big data is it's a hot topic, but it's kind of ambiguous.
It is. It's very loose.
Exactly. So I'm hoping that these are kind of two different ways you can look at it to demand more accountability, more transparency, and use big data in order to take your marketing dollars much further and make more money in 2015.
Nick, feed into that as well.
No, you hit it right on the head. What I was going to share was just that the information about consumer behavior is freely available out there.
Yeah.
We've spent a lot of time analyzing it. We know exactly what happened last year, and we have shown trends within that. So if you plan now, it will be less expensive the longer you've had it on there. So right now is a perfect time to be planning your digital strategies. And I think oftentimes because it's a little less expensive, more efficient, oftentimes it becomes that last afterthought, and then therefore with more and more dollars moving that way becomes 2-3 times more expensive than it really should be. So,
of course.
All right. A question coming in here, Nick. This one is for you. Nick, can you give us a few examples of your dealers where you're helping with content quality scores?
Sure. So a lot of this is about alignment with something called Google Trends. So they publicly publish what people are searching for. They include news headlines, forecasts. So we take the things that we know operationally, which we know dealers are better at than anybody else. You know, they know what's going to sell well in their market. And then align that to where consumer intent is within both their area as well as where it's trending within the country. So by bringing these two things together, what we know is exactly what type of content we need to develop. And then we'll build specific competitive model pages. So for example, if we're seeing an upwards trend on the, let's say the Hyundai Elantra, but we're working for a Toyota dealership, we're going to build a comparison page that not only takes their current search budget and those terms that may be a little bit more expensive and makes those less expensive because it's more relevant, but are also going to, at the same time, target in that competitive area, knowing that we anticipate their market's going to show an upwards trend for this other one and why they should come to that Toyota store. So hopefully that answers that question.
Yeah.
But
great question there. Keep them coming in here. Another question. This one's for all three of you guys. When it comes to videos and digital video, what about virtual reality and 360 videos? Opinions on that?
You want to talk more about that? It's in your wheelhouse.
Sure. So I guess there's a few different ways of looking at that. One that I would pick out specifically is Google did a test with this in their local business area, and it's really cool. And a lot of several luxury stores have this in them, where it's just gorgeous. You know, they spend so much time and money just making this a magnificent experience, improving their reputation, which, as we all know, is incredibly important in terms of that score. And then Google has supported them by saying, okay, we're going to come out and shoot, so you can take a true virtual reality tour of that store. So I think that that's a really good thing. If you are looking at vehicle specific, I'm not sure which direction that question was coming from. There's a lot of different areas within that. I think it's ultimately the presentation and shift in engagement. So while I can't speak specifically to the tactic that you would take there, I would say it's a very simple thing to do something where you're A/B testing. So half the people see one version, half see the other, and then you'd measure the difference in conversion rate between those two. But it's all about the usability to me in terms of whether consumers took the action we wanted to more or less than before we did it. And then, of course, looking at the cost of actually executing that. But Google does offer something now, and that's something that dealers could do today in terms of aligning that with their reputation, at least, for their store.
You spoke a lot about sales content. Do you offer anything for dealership service drive? What is your strategy for service? Great question there.
It'd be interesting just to do a Google search for fixed operations digital advertising and see what shows up. In fact, I'd invite dealers to do that because I think it's worthwhile to look who's paying attention to that. But you can take all of those keywords that you're bidding on and match that to your DMS. You already should be able to get a list of what those email addresses are, what those phone numbers are. Why not bring it in and see? And you can see exactly what's driving that. And I think that that's one of those keys that ultimately, again, builds an unfair advantage in the long term. So bringing that together with direct mail, with email, all of these things in one place, I mean, it becomes incredible. And it becomes an exponential increase.
Facebook customer.
All right, well, John, Nick, Eric, guys, we certainly appreciate your time, valued your insight today. Fantastic job. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us. Thanks for having us. Wonderful. Great.
So if you'd like to be a part of an upcoming CBT Live video webinar, hey, let us know, and your organization could be featured here on the official news source for the retail automotive industry. And from all of us here at CBT News, thanks so much for tuning in, and remember